Again, Charlie Beer here again. I'm a BIA major undergraduate, or marketing major undergraduate, BIA minor. Um, for my third session of the day, it was called Immersive Nightmares. To be honest, I didn't know what to expect going into it. It didn't really have an in-depth definition. It didn't even have the name of the presenter on it. It was just a cool title, and I thought it was something that might be interesting when I got there. I was expecting it to at least be somewhat more direct on the topic of dreams, nightmares, like that unknown consciousness that comes when you're asleep. But what they ended up talking more about while you're there was the like long-term, short-term memory, short-term like just the mental processes in general between the long and short-term cycles and how different they are between each other. And it kind of went way more in depth than I was realizing because like I obviously know like you have your awake state, you're thinking, you know stuff's going on, you're cognizant of it, and you can kind of control that really easily because it's just what you're thinking about in the moment. And then you have like other states where you're less coherent or whatever. But this had like way more in depth from like the most short-term form of mental processes they were talking about was concentrating because again, I mean, you have to focus on concentrating the whole time. And if you're not concentrating, you've lost that mental state. It's not like you can still be interacting with it. And so it really is only instantaneous when it's in effect that you are interacting with that concentration form of mental focus and like activity. Whereas on the other end, the most long term and immoldable is like your memories and your thought streams because even though like yes you can say something happened like you remember it, you can't force yourself to change your memories after they've been implanted in your brain. And from what we know now, it's virtually if not completely impossible to control exactly what your thought stream is in your head. Like there's just random things bouncing around in your head all the time. And they were talking a lot about how like that next step is using like technology and AI to try and get one step beyond what we're capable of now and using advanced technologies. They were even bringing up the future of quantum computing being a huge factor in this, and that it would basically allow us to go that step beyond and actually be able to like impact what we're thinking, how we're thinking about it at like a super subconscious, like most inner thoughts level that like normally we wouldn't even know were existing. But then if we are able to use this technology, kind of fix it and like, or I shouldn't say fix, there's nothing wrong with it inherently, but interact with it in a way where we can actually like mold it to be what we want it to be. Um, yeah, on the topic of that technologies, they were talking about how they can train AI models. I don't know exactly whether this is today's technology or slightly in the future from now that they were discussing it. It wasn't very clear, but using AI models to like basically scan your cerebral map, understand and have it start building an understanding of what different cerebral connections mean, like across all humans. We all share a brain in theory that is very similar to each other's, while each one is working differently on its own. They should have similar electrical impulses being sent through them that if we can train AI models on them, they may be able to uh, like guess it, or not guess. They may be able to figure out what we're thinking based on what those signals are. But the problem is because each of us is independent in our way of thinking, like we can't prove that unless I could somehow remove my consciousness and put it in someone else's body, I can't actually know how they think, or what they're thinking about at any time. And because of that, they said when this technology is around, it will still be required to scan every person individually and give them like some set of prompts and stuff so they can figure out the baseline for each individual because we're all so different at that cerebral level that we can't just have one basic model or technology that can track everyone's brain just from like, oh, I put my finger on the dial and it scans the impulses or whatever. Like it needs much more focused attention on each individual, which is super cool. Um, the one thing they were saying at the end, which made me think this was future technology they were discussing, was that it's easy for us to think that we could do all these cool things 10 to 20 years from now, but we can't. So we have to look at what we have today that we can then evolve to be like that. And the one thing that I found really interesting was how he was talking. I'm obviously I'm a marketing major, so I spent a lot of time learning about targeted ads and stuff like that. And you're saying that's a great example of what eventually will help us to like that kind of technology, but expanded upon, will be what allows us to interact with the brain at a like much closer level. Because while it's like an overall model that knows how to follow the actions of something, and then it takes your specific interactions with it and turns that into exactly what it thinks you would like, and that kind of idea of it tracks what's going on, it sees what's happening, uses some guessing and some inferences that it makes on its own to then actually determine what's being thought about at that time. And I thought it was a really cool idea. Again, this was similar deep scientific topic like the quantum mechanics talk or quantum computing talk I went to, where some of the technical stuff they were saying about the actual thoughts and thinking processes were going over my head, but it was just a really interesting talk. Thank you.